The metaphysics of being stingy. Never judge a book by its motherfucking cover. 10 times out of 10, these words truly mean something. And there's a reason as to why these words are facilitated towards times like these or things in general or people in general. See, ain't nothing wrong with what you're doing. It's how you're doing it. And of course, you as an individual are first before anything else. And remember that. Self first before anything else. So 10 times out of 10, you gotta be a stingy motherfucker in this world to make it out. Hey, nothing wrong with it. It's how you do it. And of course, there's a percentage level where you gotta maintain these spectrums and never get it mixed up or twisted or twingle like a bunch of ropes or rubber bands tied together. Because remember, you still gonna need this earth. And there's nothing here for you to basically take with you but your soul. And of course, depending on where your soul was at or is at, if it's too heavy, you know your soul is gonna prevail down here. If it's too light, then of course you know you're free to go. So remember, all them ideas, all them obstacles, all them tyrannies, and all that pain that you hold inside of a big ass lobe is pushing down on you. So when things is being pressed on you, mentally pressed, physically pressed, emotionally pressed, this could put you in depression mode. It's almost to the point that it's time for you to get stingy, which means this makes you a person that's focused on getting shit to make sure it's beneficial for you. 10 times out of 10, if you had it all, you would give it all. But you don't have it all right now. So, of course, that's why it's always good to put yourself into situations of being stingy. This way, tomorrow, you know you'll be dependent on what you have. AKA, this means that you created this outcome for you to have your fruits grown on that goddamn tree. That apple grown on that goddamn tree. Everything is basically going in your favors. You ain't gotta actually look outside yourself to figure out if something is gonna be relied upon or dead tomorrow. You have manifested yourself into a positioning of first sight, first aware of being the go-getter, the catcher, the come catcher, which means you created it, you put it out there, and you caught it, you trapped it. And of course, when you trap something, that means things is getting heated up. And when shit get heated up, it comes warmness and fulfillment within your area or your circumference, depending on how you deprived and depending on how you angled it and depending on how you marinated it. So of course, this is how it plays out into all spectrums. Individuals that are stingy, they get a bad name thrown at them and shit. And it's not due to that purpose. In this world, you don't owe nobody shit. And of course, in this world, you ain't shit. And remember what we mean by that. We mean by this physical representation is the shit you creative when you was inside of yourself, creating lights and sparks and of course electricities that's coming together and combining and bringing a tie together. And when things get evolved, this is the death stage, which means ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So that means we have many ways to lust for stuff. So you never get lost into a situations of thinking that the outcome is minor. Only people, places, and things that told you that illusion was to pretty much put you into a box, to make you feel more dependent on them, to make you a slave. This is another whole purpose of basically being a slave. See, you're never safe if you ain't create your own safe haven. But if you're relying on somebody else's safe haven to basically feed you, then you're just predicated towards being a cow or a sheep. And when you put yourself into a situation of being a cow or a sheep, you're never on a higher obstacle or higher magnitude of something. You're always buried underneath the grass or buried underneath the torch. And of course, this puts you in situations of basically getting your motherfucking casket ready early, because this puts you in depression mode. And of course, when you're in depression mode, this means you're deeply pressed against something. You're pretty much handling and of course taking all that deepness and getting pressed upon by a whole lot of situations, a whole lot of conjunctions, and a whole lot of dirt and a whole lot of stagnation. So basically, when things get too stagnated, things get too damn near deeply and deeply and buried inside of you, almost to the point you're with the maggots and the worms, or with the parasites that just basically willing to suck blood and dry you the fuck out. Basically, that's how it plays out into all situations and all spectrums. So you got to be very careful and very aware of how you're pretty much putting yourself out here in the world every day. Because every day this world can pretty much put you in certain hemispheres and certain atmospheres to pretty much put you into a counter stage attack mode, which means 10 times out of 10 you always attack with yourself, or disapprove with yourself, or unjustified with yourself. And of course, if you're unjustified, then that means you're not making no justifications with inside of yourself to basically create outside of yourself. And of course, if you ain't creating inside yourself, you're always going to be looking outside yourself to basically try to create outside yourself. And if you keep doing that shit, then of course it's going to put you into a loop, a rabbit hole, and you're going to be the rabbit on the motherfucking loop still keep moving and pedaling and shit. But of course, you're only moving and pedaling for they shit. And of course, when you stop, they shit stop. And of course, when they shit stop, that means they shit don't really have nobody to basically deprive them. That's why it's always important to basically be stingy. Focus more on yourself. Get yourself right before you put yourself out there in the world. Because the world can pretty much outweigh you, outmatch you. And of course, this is pretty much plays on to all spectrums if you pretty much didn't take care of home before you left home. And taking care of home is basically making time for yourself, putting in that work, being determined, being passionate about shit. And of course, you have to make the sacrifices to put yourself into better places and better circumstances. Basically, the sacrifices is self-sacrifices. Sacrificing all that time, second, minute, and hour for your accumulation. How you want shit to grow. How you want to basically put the seeds in that damn soil. How you want to basically put your feet on that marinator. And of course, if you're putting your feet in on waters, putting your feet on that dirt, putting your feet in that soil, and you have a purpose of where you're pretty much trying to direct that shit, then you a hard-ass spirit. You a powerful-ass spirit. And of course, power with the P. And of course, you have a purpose with that power. So of course, you got to utilize your power for a purpose. And of course, power for the P, power for the pussy. And of course, if you ain't fucking that pussy right, then of course you ain't got a real strong purpose. You ain't got a real strong mind. You ain't got a real strong cock to basically penetrate that shit inside the pussy. So that means the way you feel and the way you think is not in a coincidence of a trine as a gift or a conjunction. And of course, a conjunction is a real strong, powerful ass spirit that's ready to conjunct and consume everything. Pretty much put it into the boil. Because at the end of the day, if everybody's on this big ass ship, the Noah ship, then of course everybody on the dick. Everybody rode the dick. Basically, that's how it played out. So if you pretty much penetrating and making sure that your ideas is shaft, your shaft is pretty much stretching and overreaching and pushing into areas where it can pretty much long distance travel, then of course your mind is long distance traveling. Of course, you are a petty ass motherfucker. You are a selfish ass motherfucker because you're not relying on nobody else to basically help you with this shit. You're just pretty much picking up everybody else. Everybody else is just jumping on like sperm catchers, cum catchers. So of course they see the catching of it. Of course they're gonna get their ass in the net. These fishes won't run this time. These fishes are gonna be willing to eat. They're gonna be willing to basically take the sacrifices and take the risk of basically getting up out of the water. Why? Because either way they're gonna get ate anyway. They're gonna die anyway. But of course this is putting them into a net. Now you in a net, an internet. And of course, if you ain't got your own internet, then whose net are you in? Because of course you're gonna be in somebody else's internet. Of course, they net is gonna net you mentally, physically, emotionally. Of course, this will pretty much put you in deprived situations, making it seem like that everything outside of you is where you need to be looking for. But of course, this is how your power is taken away from you, paying attention to too much shit outside of you and forgetting that you have an inner world, an internal world for you to basically explore internally and travel the domain and see how you can pretty much bring shit into existence. And of course, you are speaking proof. You are existence. You are a shape. You are a form. And of course, you're here. So of course, if you're here, it's here for you to basically make your stage, make your presence, build your own stage. It may always seem like it's selfish, and it may always seem like, oh, you only care. But of course, these individuals don't know themselves. They're always going to put you into situations to make you feel guilty and vulnerable just because they're not into a situation of being fulfilled. They let these motherfuckers be unfulfilled. Clearly, they don't know what time we on, what type of timing you on at the moment. Your type of timing is basically overstretching the scenarios and of course pushing and penetrating yourself onto a higher magnitude and not basically getting lost or left into the dark clouds and shit of looking at individuals that's basically always bitching and crying and complaining about certain things and shit like that. No, fuck these motherfuckers. Let these motherfuckers take a chill pill. Of course, chill pill means they can go chill somewhere and get on their own pill. AKA this means you got your own pills. You got your own chilling. ways to do things. But of course, 10 times out of 10, you ain't got time to chill. You ain't got time to basically get comfortable, because your time is basically going towards how you're trying to manifest, how you're trying to create, how you're trying to create a mechanism or a world where you can basically bring it to existence and keep basically traveling and expanding with your world, keeping your heaven in your backpack, and of course, keeping your halos to the sky, and of course, it ain't shit to the sky, because of course, it's realms of realities above the sky. So if you basically understand and understand that spectrum, you won't be lost into the spectrum of basically seeing your way into a spectrum of not pretty much creating another sky for yourself or another horizon where you could basically create your own firmament. And 10 times out of 10, who got time to create a firmament? We ain't got time to basically doing that. But of course, you got individuals that's out here that's selfish, willing to basically put a firmament around your head and keep you underneath that stage so they fucking Christmas tree can pretty much keep be receiving gifts, which means you are reacting, responding to being held, and of course, you are pretty much accumulating the gifts that they gave you. And of course, you're giving attention to details. So, of course, the details come with devils. And of course, many devils and many demons is basically coming to deprive and make sure your lust is fulfilled. And of course, when your lust is taken away, you ain't got nobody else to cry to run to, but to who? Yourself. So of course, that's why it's always important to get right with yourself. Because of course, if you ain't getting right with yourself, then your health gonna be fucked up. You're gonna be worrying about the wrong situations, the wrong circumstances. And of course, if you're worrying about the wrong things in life, then of course it's gonna put you in situations of not attracting or gravitating towards things that truly really mean something for you to basically walk on and stand on. And of course, if you're building the wrong bridges and the wrong tunnels, then of course you're gonna be basically getting lost in the dark, and your bridge is gonna fall, and you're gonna get lost into the deep water. And of course, when you're lost into that goddamn deep water, that means emotional weight is basically penetrating within inside of you. And of course, you got to empty out the clip sometimes. You got to make sure the clip is empty. And of course, if the shit ain't empty, if too much shit on it, then of course, this will basically bring shit into fall. Too much heaviness. And of course, shit got to be solid. At times, you got to know your limits. That's why it's good to always have certain situations and traffic lights and shit to basically stop certain cars. Because at times, if we ain't had traffic lights, motherfucker, shit, they get heavy. People, places, and things that keep basically running into each other, crashing into each other. That's why it's always good to basically make sure things is organized, things is making practical sense. And of course, 10 times out of 10, it's not even good to basically be always practical. Sometimes you just got to experience life for what it truly is. You got to know the ins and outs. You got to know the equilibrium. You got to know the fair justice. The unfairness can play out to you getting in lost situations and basically not relying too much on faith or relying too much on practicality. And of course, losing both on a polar spectrum. But understand and understand that you are a being that needs to create your own route and your own routine on how you can basically keep your consistency going and flowing. And of course, things are gonna blow up, but at times you gotta learn how to basically get with the tides, to get with the waves. But of course, not put yourself underneath the wave, because of course, if you get too underneath the wave, get underneath the curve will never be flat, because of course you keep relying on shit to basically be flat, and you gotta come out there and flat that curve your goddamn self, spiritually speaking. Now, this ain't no situation to basically get lost to spectrums and things of that matter, but you gotta always put yourself in a situation where you can pretty much better and predict the circumstance and the outcome on how you want to penetrate, and of course put that into a marinated way. Basically put the right ingredients into the pot. And of course, if you pick it up, cooking up the pot, cooking up the right chefs in the pot, of course the pot gonna be cooking. The pot gonna feel good. The pot gonna feel like soul food. It's gonna taste like soul food. And of course, if it's tasting like soul food, you made your best move, which means you made the best ingredients, the best ties, the best waves. And of course, these waves will forever be flowing, forever be going. But of course, your wave got an expiration date, so never get lost and twisted to being too selfish. Know that at times you gotta share what you have, because 10 times out of 10, what you have may be too much, maybe too much to handle. Sometimes you gotta give it away. Sometimes you gotta share the bargain. Sometimes you gotta share your table with individuals. Of course, it's always about sharing and relating into this world. Can't be too goddamn selfish or petty. But of course, there's nothing wrong with these words. There's nothing wrong with these things. It's just how you use them and shit. And of course, sometimes you gotta put on a certain mask. Sometimes you gotta put on different costumes and different dress mechanisms to basically play the part, play dumb sometimes. But of course, don't make fools make you dumb or make you feel vulnerable to situations. You're just basically playing the part. And of course, you're using the part to basically get to the next level. Or basically, you could say the next level, because after a while, we all got a desire to get somewhere. So never make it seem like this is situations where you are pretty much caught up to the spectrum of self-pettiness or self-pity individuals. You just got to basically take action on how you want to basically see the outcome play out into your mechanism, because this is your world and nobody else is controlling the wheel or taking the wheel but you. And Jesus Christ ain't coming to save the world, because that motherfucker is in the sky shining and rotating. So make sure you rotating in the right spectrum and not rotating in the wrong spectrum. And 10 times out of 10 you gotta have your own shit in this world, aka be self-pity, but not rely on a motherfucker or be codependent. Real shit.